Hello everyone, McGee here with another draft battle analysis video. This time looking at my quarterfinals match in the Toasty Draft League, in which I play the host of the draft league, JoeyToast, and his team. This is my team that I inherited after the original coach left after a 1-3 start. I was able to make some adjustments, turn the team around, and finish at 5-4, which was just enough to eke into playoffs, coming in as the number 7 seed. So I'm playing from the underdog position in this, but having watched his most recent match before this, he struggled mightily against a standard Scizor, and so I was very happy to have a Mega Scizor to play with in this battle. But before we dive into the actual match, we're going to take a look at the team he had available to him and the team I brought to address those pieces. So his primary offensive option was the Mega Aerodactyl. Ultimately, it does not come, but things like Scizor and Pyukumuku were really helpful in being prepared to handle that. Bisharp as just another good smacking option. Swampert for rocks and pivoting. Breloom just is a very scary offensive option. The grass and fighting type combination is very difficult to resist. You'll see Gliscor be my primary answer to that during the match. Blacephalon, really hard hitter, just something that, if left unchecked, can get a couple of beast boosts and just start tearing through. Galarian Weezing, just a very reliable wall that you'll see very, very effective all throughout this match. Noivern, which can do a lot of everything, very good Swiss Army Dragon Pokemon, so you never quite know what it's going to do when it shows up. Xurkitree, just a really great wall breaker, really, really critical to have a ground type to force some predictive play by him. Chinchino didn't particularly scare me just because of Pyukumuku's ability to kind of wall it out. And then Oricorio definitely can be lots of different sets because it has 4 different type combinations to play with. So just a Mon to be wary of, but I wasn't running any Quiver Dance users, so I wasn't overly scared of Oricorio's offensive potential. And so the team I kind of brought to address a lot of these things. So I have Mega Scizor, really just heavily invested into HP and then full on attack, just because most of the time, if I'm attacking with him, I just want to click Bullet Punch. Maybe a U-turn pivot on a predict, but otherwise Swords Dance to get even stronger, and then Brick Break just so I have an option to hit and OHKO his Bisharp. I don't need it to be that strong. The quad damage is plenty to work with, and I don't need Brick Break for anything else on his team. So it really was just for Bisharp to be able to remove it from play without having to pivot out with U-turn. Otherwise, it's pretty much just spamming Bullet Punch all game long. Gliscor, really critical for him to be a strong defensive check to handle things like Breloom. Toxic Orb, Poison Heal, because it helps protect again from Breloom's Spore potential once the Toxic Orb is activated. Roost, Earthquake, Knockoff, Swords Dance. Knockoff was probably an oversight in retrospect. It probably should have been something for better coverage to deal with things like Weezing and Breloom, just because I need to get quite a few Earthquakes or quite a few Swords Dances in there before Earthquake starts really being effective enough to handle them. Heavily invested in HP, speed, very specifically invested to outspeed Xurkitree by 1 because it has access to hidden power, and I don't need to be hit by hidden power ice. I need to make sure I'm always outspeeding that. So either it's choice locked and I can manage that, or it's some other set and I'm always outspeeding it. So it was very critical that Gliscor be able to outspeed a non-Scarf Xurkitree, and then the rest just in defense to get bulk. Alolan Muck, just because he's a really reliable special wall with the Assault Vest. Poison Touch works really great with Pursuit, Knockoff, and Brick Break. A Gunk Shot really is only there to do solid damage to the Galarian Weezing, just because Muck doesn't really have a great move to hit Weezing for super effective damage with, but I need to make sure I can hit it for decent damage if I'm forced to attack with the Muck, just because Muck does a really good job of being able to scout for what the Galarian Weezing wants to do, namely being my way to prevent toxic spam if I don't like that, or if I'm not sure if it has hidden power ice, just to hit my Gliscor hard, it gives me an option to check for that. Zapdos, Choice Scarf, he's able to run Adamant because I'm able to hit the speed tiers I need to hit. There's a bit of a speed gap on his team. I just need to make sure I outspeed the Xurkitree, which I think is base 81 or base 82 speed. Base 81 because Beast Boosts all have indivisible numbers. And so I just needed to make sure I outsped that, and we could win the Scarf battle if we had to. Otherwise, a little thrown into HP, and then U-turn, Brave Bird, Thunderous Kick, and Throat Chop. Really just there to click stab and spam and hit things hard once things start to break on his team. So that was primarily Zapdos' goal. Pyukumuku, Rocky Helmet, because I'm not overly needing to get the leftovers back. I'm built in a way that I'm always going to wall out Bisharp and Mega Aerodactyl, and so I don't need to worry too much about leftovers giving little bits of damage back. I saw that he has a Chinchino, and so I want to be able to punish that super, super hard if it decides to click Tail Slap, and so Rocky Helmet's just a really good option for that. Recover, Toxic, two very common moves. I opt for the block and soak set just because I wanted a way to remove Galarian Weezing in a situation I thought I could generate. I didn't feel great about my chances of getting any good mirror coats or counters in this game, and so I wanted to be able to trap that Galarian Weezing if possible, because I figured if anything it would run Toxic Spike sets or not carry Toxic at all, because the combination of Muck and Gliscor make it really difficult to spam that move. And so if I got a situation where I could trap it, then I could remove it from play because it's just a hard piece for me to get rid of. It doesn't do much to me, but it's just a really safe switch in for him a lot of the time unless I have Scizor on the field. And then finally, as my Spadef wall to really make sure I could handle Xurkitree is Licky Licky. Leftovers Oblivious so I can't get taunted. Wish, Protect. Knockoff to take away some items because I really didn't like my potential to spam Toxic, and I wanted to make sure I could do something. And then Heal Bell, just because I wasn't sure what the Galarian Weezing was going to do, or if something like Muck got poisoned, or not poisoned, burnt, or if Gliscor got unfortunately burnt by something I wasn't prepared for. Not, yeah, burnt. I wanted to make sure I could remove that so Gliscor could be the effective wall I needed him to be. And I was very wary of the spore potential of Breloom, and if I wasn't always in a position to address that, I was worried it could start to threaten the team. And so that's what I brought. Those were my pieces I was bringing in to handle. The game was aimed at breaking things slowly until the point where either Zapdos or Scizor could basically spam a button, win the game, with very strong defensive options in Muck, Pyukumuku, Licky Licky, and Gliscor. And so we'll go to the match. I'll play it at regular speed for now because the match is a little long and don't want to spend forever on it. I ultimately opt for Alolan Muck lead just because I'm not sure what he's going to lead. If he goes into something like a special attacker like Oricorio or Xurkitree, I'm in a position to do immediate damage, and I like that. Or I'm sorry, I wasn't even paying attention straight. I lead with Zapdos because I feel I'm in a position to U-turn or Brave Bird or just be able to safely pivot around in turn one because I'm confident I'm going to outspeed most things. He counter leads with a Noivern, which does concern me that it might be Choice Scarf as well, and so I don't want to take an unnecessary turn one risk, and I'm going to play it very cautious and go into Alolan Muck because he walls out Noivern. Still walls out Galarian Weezing, so I want to scout what Weezing wants to do. My Gunk Shot's going to out damage it, but I'm very wary it has Pain Split. No reason to feed it that damage, and I want to make sure I can proc Gliscor's Toxic Orb safely and early, so I have that in play, and I have a good answer to Breloom. We're both kind of just standing here now as he's pain splitting, and I'm basically out healing that damage with the poison heal. And so I take away his Barbary Berry, which is very, very critical, so that Scizor in the late game has more opportunity to spam things. I get over greedy here, try to go for a Swords Dance. He comes in with Noivern. Because he comes in with Noivern, I'm very confident he has Hidden Power Ice, and so I'm just going to flee to my best defensive option for Noivern, which is good old Alolan Muck. Does very, very little. I see that it's Life Orb, which is good information. It's forced to pivot out. I get a really free pursuit here as it's leaving. Nearly takes it down to a quarter health. He comes in with Chinchino, and so I go for the predict that he's going to tail slap me, and I'm very much rewarded on this play. He goes for tail slap, it hits. And so Pyukumuku takes 94% of its health, 96% of its health for clicking tail slap. Really strong play from Pyukumuku. Does exactly what I wanted him to do in this match, which is just take Chinchino out of the game, basically. Free recover. I see it's Toxic Orb, Toxic Heal, Breloom as well, or Poison Heal. I'm basically forced in with Gliscor to address his Poison Heal because that's the only thing that's safe from his Spore. I'm not overly in danger from his stab attacks because Seed Bomb, if it has it, is at neutral damage. Focus Punch here does not very effective amounts of damage. My poison heal keeps me from being in danger of the leech seed stall, which she is aware of. I get again overly greedy with my swords dances, and Oreo is able to come in and kind of capitalize on that. Forces Gliscor out here because I don't need to take unnecessary hits with Gliscor. Pyukumuku walls Oricorio. It does literally nothing with that fire attack. Um, I go for a call that he's going to come in with Galarian Wheezing. Unfortunately, I'm wrong. So I tried to go for a predict, and I could have probably safely toxic tier and just seen what came in. It was probably the safer situation. I just didn't like my chances of getting a free toxic on something like Xurkitree. I didn't think that would be the piece that came in. So I'm wrong, unfortunately. It forces Licky Licky in here. Licky Licky thankfully has knockoff, and knockoff is always able to break the sub if he's not invested in defense, which he doesn't appear to be. And so I just keep using knockoff to take away his thing. And then I'm going to go for a predict on this turn. This is really a turn that the whole game could have fallen apart. I get it right because I've just been spamming the same move, but I'm going to switch to Gliscor here on a hard predict that he tries to Thunderbolt. I'm very rewarded for that guess, which really saves my game and forces Xurkitree out here because I outspeed it. I guarantee outspeed this Xurkitree. And so I'm in a position to just safely click Earthquake. Wheezing comes back in, not a big deal. I've gotten all my health back with Gliscor now, which is huge. Licky Licky's able to come in because it's not scared of this Wheezing at all. It doesn't really threaten it. He's not going into an offensive option. He's just kind of sitting there with Wheezing. Big misplay on his part. Lets me get my Muck back in. Lets me get my Muck fully healed. Very critical. I misplay this. I kind of don't take awareness that he could be spamming Spore here. I should just go straight to Gliscor. And so it's a misplay that I do anything besides go to Gliscor because Gliscor is going to wall out any sort of Spore action that the Breloom might try to do. So I get my Muck put to sleep. A regrettable misplay, but nothing terrible because again I have Heal Bell to address this. And so we get to the same standoff again where it's Gliscor versus Breloom. Breloom can't really break Gliscor. Gliscor can break Breloom if I get big enough. And so it's just a bit of a standoff right now. I'm going to call here that he hard switches this time because he did it last time, and I'm going to get that predict right. And so I'm able to get Chinchino out of play, which, it wasn't huge, but it helps. He comes back in with Noivern. I'm forcing him to the same switch around with Licky Licky. I'm going to get Wish going back up again to get my Licky Licky nice and healthy, make sure I'm in full control here. Or I'm sorry, Heal Bell here because this was a free opportunity to get my Muck back awake because I was worried about him being in a spot where I would need him to do something and I wouldn't be able to Heal Bell him and he would be asleep. So I wanted to make sure he was awake. So now Xurktree's back against the Licky Licky. It's going to be knockoff spams again because I can't let Xurkitree sit behind that sub. Very, very critical he doesn't stay behind a sub. And so I will sack Licky Licky here if I have to. This is Licky Licky's primary goal. Noivern's nearly gone. So if I can make sure Xurktree's out of play, then I'm content. And so now I know it's going to be in a position where it can't sub again, which is crucial for me. And I'm able to kind of do a trade-off that's quite fair in my opinion. Licky Licky's done its job. Xurktree's at 15%. Gliscor can safely click knockoff here and get its Toxic Orb back inactive, which was a unfortunate part of having to use Heal Bell is that I lose Gliscor's safety with that Toxic status. And so being able to come in as a revenge kill and reactivate that was really important to me. He comes in with Breloom, same standoff we've been having this whole time, but the game's already starting to fall apart for him. Two of his best offensive pieces are gone. Breloom isn't in a position to do anything to Gliscor. It's just kind of more of a standoff. And so I'm going to go for Swords Dances, expecting a Substitute or a Leech Seed. I should be spamming more Swords Dances here, but I go for Earthquake Predict. And so he's able to come in with Wheezing, kind of forces Gliscor out. I come back in with Pyukumuku. Unfortunately, I've given away the block play in this game, and he just has a really safe switch out to Breloom. So I'm going to go for, I think, a block play again, but it doesn't really do anything because he's just got such a safe switch into Breloom. Oh, no, I call that. And that was actually a really important call. I knew he was wary of the fact I would try to block him. And so doing anything but hard switching there was not going to be to my advantage. I needed to call what he was going to call. He was going to see with that Weezing that he couldn't afford to stay in on Pyukumuku because he was going to get trapped and killed. And so he was going to be forced into Breloom because Breloom can both kill Pyukumuku and not be worried about Toxic. And so I hard call that and go to my Galarian Zapdos, where now I can spam Brave Bird freely. He's forced back into Galarian Weezing. Unfortunately, it's under 50%, so I'm going to get forced out here because I can't risk taking that damage. I go for a predict here. It doesn't pan out that he's going to call me again, trying to call him again. And so I was going to try to block him on a predict that he would stay in and click Strange Steam. He doesn't. So I lose a little momentum there, but it's nothing crucial. I'm able to flee right back to Gliscor and do more of this standoff with Breloom where neither one of us are gaining much momentum, but Breloom can't do what Breloom wants to do. And I'm just going to try to get my Swords Dances up. He doesn't have enough strength to KO me in any reliable fashion as long as I don't roost on turns he's focus punching, because then I lose my resist. And so it's just a careful dance around the Breloom, but I'm in a really good position. Um, I do go for the call there, and again, it does pay off again. And this is the turn the game really goes in my favor. It's more or less lost for him. Is I'm able to come in with the Zapdos on a predicted focus punch because I know he's not going to predictably click Spore there. He could sub again, which I need to be wary of, but I'm not overly concerned because I can U-turn out of that, break the sub, and just keep going with the momentum. Or he focus punches, which does nothing to Zapdos because I resist, and then I'm in control again. So this is the turn I more or less am in full control of this game. He's forced back in with Weezing. Weezing can't take this Brave Bird and then another one, so Weezing is now dead and out of play. And then he's down to 3 pieces. I don't confidently feel I'm in a spot to KO this Oricorio yet, and I still want to make sure I have Zapdos as the nuke option for Breloom, just because that Breloom set is hard to deal with. And so I want to put Zapdos on the back end and not risk him at this stage. Muck has one job left, which is to deal with the Oricorio, make sure it doesn't break me. And so he can pretty safely click Gunk Shot, knock off, and just kind of break it. Uh, Joey is not in a position to switch out. He could sack his Noivern here to try to get Breloom back in, but that's about all he can do. And then we just go back to the same Gliscor Breloom standoff. So basically, I'm poisoning this Oricorio, Gunk Shot I get. I'm doing just enough damage where it is slowly dying as long as the Gunk Shots hit. And so he is more or less forced to attack here with the Oricorio and sack it just so that he can try to create a new situation. Noivern comes back in. I have an Assault Vest. I'm not scared of Noivern. The Draco misses. It might have KO'd. I don't know if it would have. Noivern isn't that strong. And so now Noivern's out of play. Breloom comes back in. No reason for me to sit in with Muck. It doesn't do me any advantage. I'm just going to switch right back to Gliscor because what I need to make sure happens here is that if Gliscor goes down, so be it. I just need to make sure Breloom isn't behind a sub. And so as long as I can keep Breloom from being behind a sub, then I can always come in with Zapdos and Revenge Kill and win this game. So the primary goal at the moment is to just make sure Breloom is not in any position to hide behind a sub, and Gliscor is the best piece to ensure that doesn't happen since it can't spam Spore at Gliscor. So I have to be a little cautious of my PP. I've been a little aggressive with my Earthquakes this game, and it's only a 16 PP move. So I'm just trying to dance around the focus punches to not be roosting when those happen. I'm trying to make sure it doesn't go behind a sub, and I'm trying to preserve my Earthquakes. All in all, I'm in full control. I just need to not throw this and put myself in a weird position where I would be at risk of something going wrong. And so I'm at max strength now. Earthquake will obviously do enough to break these subs. It did it at +2, but now it's about doing enough damage where I can outstall the Substitute and the Leech Seed toxic healing he gets, because he gets 25% back a turn basically with that combination of things. And so I just need a good amount of damage on him to be able to win this out. Um, I again making sure I'm in control. He's going to be just out of range. I should just be clicking Earthquake here to keep him out of range of Substitute. That would be the safer call. I roost, which is a bit of a mistake and me being overly cautious. I should just be trying to spam at this point and close out this game, which is kind of where I'm at now. I'm just going to keep spamming Earthquake so that he can't do any sort of substituting at this point. Because I think on not this next Earthquake, but the one after, he'll be in a position where he can't sub much anymore. He's not able to sub anymore, and then that's where the game will ultimately wrap up. Because he's, again, just keeping himself healthy as possible, trying to PP stall at my Earthquakes. That's his best chance at winning at this point is making my Gliscor run out of Earthquakes. But he's now at a point where I can click Earthquake and he can't sub, which is what matters. He tries to, it doesn't pan out. I mean, he could have killed me with the Focus Punch plus the Leech Seed there. He probably could have KO'd Gliscor, but then I just went with Zapdos. So he tries to play his win conditions. I just play in a way to ensure that he is not able to hide behind that substitute. So I didn't overly prep for that Breloom set. I was more concerned with the full offense Breloom with Mach Punch and Seed Bomb and Swords Dance and Spore. Very smart set that he brought. Very fortunate that Gliscor was able to wall that out. I'm glad he brought Focus Punch over, say, Seed Bomb, just because Gliscor was just able to sit there and slowly force it out each time. Because it didn't have the PP to sit there and be spamming Focus Punch. I could have roost stalled out all of his PP on that Focus Punch, and then he would have been a useless offensive piece. And so ultimately, Gliscor does most of the defensive work this game. Scizor, for all of the wall breaking potential he had, never sees the field. Zapdos does a couple of important breaking things mid game. Licky Licky and Pyukumuku do their key defensive pieces, as does Muck in ensuring that the Oricorio goes down, keeping the Xurkitree from being able to do anything crazy offensive, and then keeping that Noivern in check and forcing it out early and taking over half its health away. Uh, Ultimately, very clean win on my end. I was very satisfied with how that played out. I advanced to the semifinals, where I play the winner of an undecided game at the moment. And then I will hopefully be making my push to the finals and trying to claim that championship. So that's all for this one. I'll be back with the follow up match for that playoff. So stay tuned for more.